No one expects to run out of money in their 60s until the day the numbers stop adding up and the fear quietly takes its place. It doesn't happen all at once. One day, your retirement account seems sufficient. And then one month, you're hesitating at the pharmacy, wondering if you can afford your medication. Not because you were careless, but because the rules of the game changed and no one warned you. I'm Vernon. Today, I will share with you the 7 financial traps that I've seen capture even the most prepared among us. And, more importantly, the ancient wisdom and modern strategies to avoid them. In particular, pay close attention to trap number 5. It's the one I've seen destroy more retirement plans than any other. Yet it's rarely discussed in financial circles. What troubles me deeply is seeing intelligent, hard-working individuals who plan their whole lives suddenly finding themselves financially vulnerable after 60. Why do some people struggle financially in retirement despite a lifetime of hard work and saving? A study from the National Council on Aging reveals that over 25 million Americans aged 60 plus are economically insecure, living at or below 250% of the federal poverty level. The numbers are staggering, but behind each statistic is a person who once had dreams of a comfortable retirement. Before we dive in, take a moment to subscribe and turn on notifications. The videos that follow will go deeper into the real questions of retirement, from smart withdrawals to legacy planning, all designed to help you build not just security, but confidence in every step ahead. Now, let's begin and uncover the traps that no one warned you about, but that you still have time to avoid. Trap number 1. The illusion of risk-free living. When we enter our 60s, something subtle often shifts in our relationship with risk. We begin to believe that safety means avoidance, that the best way to protect our money is to take no chances at all. The ancient Stoic philosopher Seneca once wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that things are difficult." And nowhere is this more true than in how we approach financial decisions in retirement. Take Margaret, one of my former teachers. At 69, after decades of working and saving, she retired and moved her entire portfolio into cash and certificates of deposit. She believed she was safeguarding her future by avoiding market volatility, thinking, as many do, that at her age she simply couldn't afford any losses. But 5 years later, the losses came, not through the stock market, but through inflation. Her carefully protected savings couldn't keep up with rising costs. And, gradually, she was forced to make painful sacrifices in her lifestyle, not because she made reckless decisions, but because she misunderstood where the real risk was hiding. The lesson here isn't that we should take wild chances with our retirement funds. It's that risk never disappears, it simply changes form. Avoiding one kind of risk often means taking on another. Modern research supports this. According to T. Rowe Price, retirees who maintain a diversified portfolio with even 40–60% in equities have historically been far more likely to preserve their purchasing power over a 30-year retirement than those who retreated entirely into safe investments. So, what should you do? You don't need to be aggressive, but you do need to be awake. Look at your money not just for what it is, but for what it's doing and what it might be silently losing. Review your portfolio not only for market risk, but for inflation risk as well. Are you balanced enough to withstand both? Remember, the goal isn't to eliminate risk. It's to understand it and to choose how we face it wisely. Trap number 2. Healthcare miscalculations. We had the experience but missed the meaning. The poet T. Eliot once wrote, "That line echoes in my mind when I see how many people approach healthcare in retirement, familiar with the system, but unprepared for the true weight of its costs." We tend to think that Medicare will cover most things, or that our relatively good health today is a reliable predictor of tomorrow. But health, like life, doesn't move in straight lines. A powerful example of this reality is the story of actor Alan Alda. Best known for his role in MASH, Alda has been remarkably open about his Parkinson's diagnosis, which he revealed at age 82. Though financially secure, Alda has spoken about the constant adjustments required, from specialized movement therapy to neurological care, most of which go well beyond what Medicare alone covers. He didn't wait to react. He prepared. And because of that, he's been able to maintain not just his health, but his independence. Most people, unfortunately, don't plan with that level of foresight. Research from Fidelity Investments shows that a retired couple age 65 can expect to need around $315,000 after tax to cover healthcare costs throughout retirement. The ancient physician Hippocrates once said, "Healing is a matter of time, but it is sometimes also a matter of opportunity." And in financial terms, that opportunity begins to shrink with every year we delay facing these realities. So, what can you do now, not out of fear, but out of clarity? Understand that Medicare has limits. Explore supplemental insurance or Medicare Advantage plans to bridge the gaps. If you're still eligible, open a health savings account, HSA, one of the only accounts with triple tax benefits. And consider long-term care insurance before you need it. The average annual cost of nursing home care in the U.S. now exceeds $100,000 in many states, a number that can undo decades of careful saving in just a few short years. This week, set aside a little space to look at your plan with fresh eyes. Ask yourself with quiet honesty, am I preparing for the health I have today, or the care I might need tomorrow? A message like this may not go viral, but it might quietly land where it's most needed. If it spoke to you in any way, give it a like. Sometimes, that small click could make this video touch the right person and remind them they've been avoiding financial traps. Trap number 3. The forced retirement ambush. Some of the most disruptive moments in life don't come with fanfare. They arrive quietly, ahead of schedule. For many, retirement feels like a distant marker they can approach on their own terms. But what happens when that timeline isn't up to you? Let's take James, a corporate executive who had every detail mapped out. He planned to retire at 70, with those final years maximizing income and pension contributions. But at 63, his company restructured, and James was suddenly and involuntarily retired 7 years ahead of schedule. That meant 7 fewer years of saving, and 7 more years his retirement fund now had to cover. James's story isn't rare. According to the Employee Benefit Research Institute, nearly 47% of retirees leave the workforce earlier than planned, often due to health concerns, job loss, or family caregiving. The financial ripple effect is real. Fewer contributions, earlier withdrawals, and more years relying on what you've already built. So how do we prepare for something that isn't entirely within our control? Ancient wisdom points us to a simple but powerful idea. Margin the space between what we hope for and what might actually happen. In modern terms, that means building a retirement resilience plan. First, run your numbers assuming you'll retire 3-5 years earlier than planned. What changes? Where's the pressure? Second, develop a skill or service that can translate into part-time or flexible income, even if your main career ends unexpectedly. And third, while you're still working, explore disability insurance, especially since health issues are among the leading causes of forced retirement. As we've now explored the first 3 traps, the illusion of risk-free living, healthcare miscalculations, and forced early retirement, a pattern begins to emerge. These risks don't always arrive with noise. They slip in quietly, while we're still assuming we have more time. Have you imagined what life might look like if retirement arrived earlier than expected? Even a quiet reflection this week could open space for a new kind of clarity, not out of worry, but out of wisdom. Because the best preparation doesn't assume control, it accepts uncertainty and plans anyway. Not every mistake in retirement is dramatic. Some are quiet, irreversible, and made with the best intentions. One of the most common? Let's take a closer look at why the next trap catches so many, and how a small timing decision can shape your financial life for decades. Trap number 4. Social Security timing mistakes. I witnessed Eleanor and Richard, my friend, who came to me just after both had filed for Social Security at age 62, the earliest possible time. When we ran the numbers, they were stunned to learn their decision may have cost them over $200,000 in potential lifetime benefits. They weren't reckless. They were doing what many do, following the advice they'd heard over and over: take it as soon as you can. But this belief is often misleading. For each year you delay claiming Social Security, between your full retirement age and 70, your monthly benefit increases by roughly 8%, a guaranteed return that's difficult to replicate elsewhere. According to the National Bureau of Economic Research, nearly 90% of Americans claim Social Security at a suboptimal time, and the average household is leaving approximately $111,000 on the table. This is where the idea of opportunity cost becomes painfully real. Claiming early isn't free, it's a trade-off. You may receive more checks, but each one is smaller. And over time, especially if you live longer than expected, the cost of that decision compounds. So how do you approach this with wisdom? First, understand that Social Security isn't just a payout, it's protection against the risk of outliving your savings. Second, look at your family's history of longevity, your health, and your spouse's benefits. Coordinated strategies can make a major difference in total household income. And finally, before making this one-time, irreversible choice, talk to a financial advisor who specializes in Social Security. A few $100s for expert guidance could result in tens of thousands in additional lifetime value. It's easy to follow the crowd when it comes to timing, but wisdom often asks us to pause, to calculate, compare, and question what everyone says. Have you run the numbers for your own situation? Or are you leaning on assumptions that might quietly cost you more than you think? Drop a comment. Your insight might help someone else avoid a costly mistake. Few are as quietly corrosive as the belief that love guarantees support, especially when it comes to money. That brings us to the next trap. One built not on numbers, but on assumptions about family. Trap number 5. The false promise of family as financial security. Now we arrive at the 5th trap, perhaps the most quietly painful one of all. Aristotle once wrote that the family is the association established by nature for the supply of humanity's everyday wants. But in today's complex world, relying on family as your financial backup plan can quietly become a trap, not out of malice or neglect, but out of misunderstanding. This topic is always delicate. It touches something sacred, our belief that love will naturally translate into support, and yet, I've seen more financial distress caused by this assumption than nearly any other. This isn't the theory for me, because I've lived it. A few years ago, I went through a sudden health shift that required specialized care. I had always assumed that, if things ever got difficult, my children would step in. Of course they would. I helped raise them, guide them, and support them. I believed love would translate into financial backup. But when the time came, I realized something I hadn't prepared for. They loved me deeply, but they were also navigating their own mountains. Student debt, mortgage payments, children of their own, aging in-laws. They weren't absent. They were simply at capacity. And I had made plans based on hope, not numbers. No resentment, no failure, just limits economic ones. According to research from the MIT Age Lab, the traditional family safety net is fraying. Families are smaller, more geographically spread out, and younger generations are financially stretched in ways previous ones weren't. The assumption that my kids will take care of me is less reliable than ever, not because they don't love us, but because they can't afford to. But this doesn't mean we should give up on family. In fact, the opposite is true. True love plans ahead, not to burden, but to protect. Here's what that looks like in practice. Have open, honest conversations with your family about financial boundaries before a crisis. Put legal documents in place that clarify how you want finances handled if you become incapacitated. And most importantly, build a retirement plan that stands on its own, so your care doesn't become your family's crisis. You may never need that level of independence, but if you do, you'll be grateful you prepared. Independence also means protection, especially when the threats come not from family, but from strangers who know exactly how to target your trust. So let me make it clear in the next trap. Trap number 6. Digital vulnerability and financial scams. This line from Cato the Elder, spoken more than 2,000 years ago. Nothing is more common than for great thieves to ride in triumph while small ones are punished. Still echoes in the digital age, where the most dangerous thieves wear no masks and leave no fingerprints. Today's financial scammers are precise, polished, and terrifyingly effective. And the group they target most often? Older adults, especially those over 60. Even some of the most seasoned, public, and financially aware individuals have come close to falling prey. Actress Jane Seymour, known worldwide for her role in Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, spoke publicly about being approached by scammers posing as financial advisors. The scheme was sophisticated, complete with convincing documents and official calls. Jane said she was moments away from transferring a large sum before pausing to call a real advisor. What saved her wasn't intelligence, it was structure. Even someone with decades in the spotlight, business experience, and wealth was almost fooled. And she's far from alone. According to Stanford's Center on Longevity, adults over 65 are targeted by scammers 5 times more often than younger adults. Worse, they're more likely to lose money once targeted, not because they're careless, but because the aging brain becomes more trusting, less reactive to red flags. The FBI reports seniors lose over $3 billion each year to scams, with the average individual loss topping $34,000. In retirement, that kind of hit isn't just painful, it can be permanent. But we're not helpless. The ancient virtue of prudence, the ability to apply wisdom to protect oneself, offers a guide. Here's how we turn that principle into practice. First, set up structural protections. Add a trusted contact to your accounts. Set up alerts for large withdrawals or changes to key financial information. Second, build a personal scam filter. Anytime someone contacts you about money, even if they sound legitimate, pause. Commit to a 72-hour wait period and discuss with someone you trust before acting. And third, remember this golden rule. Real investments don't pressure. If someone's rushing you, that's your red flag. Have you or someone close to you ever faced a scam attempt? Leave a comment below. Your story might help someone stay one step ahead of a mistake they'll never see coming. Trap number 7. The silent killer. Inflation, ignorance. Inflation is one of the quiet ones. It doesn't crash your portfolio in a day. It creeps, reshaping your reality slowly, year by year. I've seen this happen firsthand with many friends. David and Sophia retired in 2005. They'd saved diligently and calculated that they needed about $50,000 per year on top of Social Security to live comfortably. By 2022, just to maintain the same lifestyle, that number had quietly climbed to $75,000. Not because they spent more, but because everything around them cost more. They had prepared for market drops. They hadn't prepared for life to simply become more expensive. This is one of retirement's most underestimated risks. According to research from the Society of Actuaries, inflation is consistently overlooked by retirees, even though it's one of the most predictable financial pressures they'll face. Even modest inflation, just 3% per year, can cut your purchasing power in half over 24 years. And yet, many retirees still treat inflation as a background issue instead of the daily, compounding threat that it really is. In philosophy, there's a concept called entropy, the natural tendency of systems to decline unless energy is applied. Inflation is retirement's financial entropy. If you don't actively counter it, you lose ground, slowly, steadily, and inevitably. So how do we fight back? First, question the idea that safe investments are truly safe. A certificate of deposit earning 2% in a 4% inflation world isn't protecting you, it's quietly costing you. Second, include inflation hedges in your portfolio. Things like tips, certain types of real estate, or businesses with strong pricing power. And third, build inflation adjustments directly into your retirement income plan. Don't withdraw the same amount year after year. Give your future self room to breathe. Inflation won't knock on the door, but it will show up in the price of groceries, prescriptions, travel, housing, and stay there, growing. Inflation doesn't feel like an emergency until it's too late to catch up. But those who build in protection early often find that the lifestyle they imagined stays intact. Not because they predicted perfectly, but because they planned patiently. Conclusion. As we reach the end of our journey through these 7 financial traps, I'm reminded of the ancient wisdom from Socrates. The only true wisdom is in knowing you know not. The financial traps we've explored today, the illusion of risk-free living, healthcare miscalculations, the forced retirement ambush, Social Security timing mistakes, the false promise of family as financial security, digital vulnerability, and inflation ignorance share a common thread. Each becomes dangerous precisely when we believe it can't happen to us. I invite you to take 3 specific actions after our time together today. First, schedule a retirement vulnerability assessment, either with a financial advisor or using online tools designed to identify gaps in your plan. Second, create a financial wisdom journal where you record insights about your relationship with money and the specific steps you're taking to address potential traps. Finally, share what you've learned with someone else in your life who might benefit. Ancient wisdom traditions all emphasize that knowledge gains power when shared. Let this be more than a video. Let it be the start of a deeper conversation in your life. Tap the like button if this message is aligned with something you've felt but hadn't yet voiced. Share this video with someone navigating these same questions, and subscribe to stay connected, not just for tips, but for a space where wisdom, aging, and financial clarity are honored together. Until next time, wishing you financial peace and prosperity. Thank you for joining me today.